What would you do if you woke up one day and found yourself in the tribulation? What a question. And here to discuss that question is Brent Miller Jr. And Brent, welcome to Prophecy Watchers.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are a filmmaker, and I might just say, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I think you are a filmmaker of the first magnitude. And you wrote and directed this, The Final Prophecies, this DVD. How would you describe this, Brent, The Final Prophecies?
Well, The Final Prophecies was our attempt to use apologetics to not only edify Christians, but to also be an ultimate ministry tool to the non-believing world, to actually show the big picture of biblical prophetic validity. Whereas if we follow the history of prophetic events that have come to pass in the past, then the ones that remain that have to come to pass in the future must also come to pass, being that it's all from the same source. But too often we hear people look at biblical history and say, well, we've seen these prophetic events occur in the past, and that's very interesting. Now let's wait and see if the future unfolds the same way. So what we're doing is showing a pattern with real geological, political evidence that there is a prophetic pattern occurring that will lead to the fulfillment of these prophecies. And of course, it's based on apologetics research. And so that film has gone on to be one of the most watched prophecy films to the non-believing world.
Well, from our perspective here at Prophecy Watchers, it is the most watched. We've never seen a response to a DVD like we've seen to The Final Prophecies. The production qualities, just being swept along by the beautiful scenery and the script and the narration, everything is just right. And the biblical message in The Final Prophecies is that we're really getting close to something huge. And there's a sense of that, but you've done something else, and we're going to talk on this program today about the something else, and that is this, and I'm holding up the Blu-ray version of this. It's called The Coming Convergence. And you need to understand that title, The Coming Convergence. Something is converging. And that's sort of a central theme in this particular DVD Blu-ray that you've released.
Absolutely. The Coming Convergence began as an eschatology-based research project that began filming after The Final Prophecies was released. There was such an explosion of interest in The Final Prophecies with the information, new information to so many people that they never knew about the validity of biblical prophecy, that they wanted more. So the Coming Convergence was a project to dig in and see if we could prove without any doubt not only that biblical prophecy was absolutely true, but that the approaching tribulation is also absolutely true. And the reason why it's so crucial now in this day and age is because more people than ever are disbelieving anything to do with biblical prophecy in the non-believing world. In fact, we've seen a drastic reduction in churches teaching eschatology, teaching the book of Revelation. More and more of them are avoiding prophecy every year. And so what we're seeing is an issue that there's a divide occurring between those that are following biblical prophecy, genuine prophecy, that understand what it is, that understand that eschatology, versus the world that is confusing the difference between prediction and prophecy. For example, we look at all these kind of events that go viral, that end up making the news, the nightly news, Y2K, the Mayan calendar. A lot of these kind of celestial events that are brought up and discussed. And as interesting as they are, and as much as prophecy watchers should be researching and studying and watching these things, there is a lot of misconception and confusion that and only that is Bible prophecy. So when you have like the 2012 Mayan calendar prediction, which by the way has nothing to do with Bible prophecy,
right?
A lot of the people, they end up throwing prediction and prophecy in the same tub, and it all gets thrown out. So there is this great divide that's occurring because of misinformation and deception. And so we set out to do what is the ultimate apologetics prophetic research film that we feel that has ever been released in our day and age.
Now, when you say apologetics, let's expand on that idea, because apologetics is not aimed at the Bible scholar. You are aiming this at someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of biblical knowledge, and yet they're looking, and they don't quite know where to look at this point.
Right, absolutely. And it's based on my own experience. I was a manager for MTV Networks. So working in big media, we saw how companies can take misinformation and present that to a non-believing world to help kind of create some of these misconceptions. And so when we say apologetics, we're presenting information that anybody can understand. So not only does it reinforce the Christian, edify them, lift them up, but it also gives the non-believing world real information that they can relate to actually understand that these things are occurring.
Now, you recently premiered The Coming Convergence, and tell us about that. Where and when and so forth.
Yep. A few weeks ago, we did premiere this film at a theater in California. It was a full audience, and there were obviously a lot of Christians that did show up in the audience. We wanted to get their feedback, but there was also a lot of non-believers and people of various backgrounds. And what we wanted to do, this goes beyond just a normal documentary. What we wanted to do was combine actual cinematography, film elements, and true documentary research, journalistic research, and apologetics to not only prove that these biblical events that are to come to pass in the end of days are converging now without any doubt, but also tell a story of, as what you started out with, what would it be like if you did wake up in the tribulation? Because prophetic films shouldn't just be supported by the Christian world. They need to be supported and viewed by the non-believing world. That's really the point of what we're trying to accomplish here, is to get the word to the non-believing world. And so by combining cinematography with our actress, Erin Hawkins, who's an incredible actress, who plays the part of a young girl who actually lives in the future, in the tribulation period. And so we're going through this documentary with incredible evidence that shocked our audience. Even Christians were shocked and just bewildered by the proof that we had and that we're exposing in the Coming Convergence, that this is absolutely provable and occurring. But the sequences with our actress, who kind of interrupts the documentary, and we go to her in the future, who's now, to her, it's all past. Today we're debating the things that are to come, right? But for her, they're a reality. They've happened.
And watching her, it's an emotional kind of an affect that you get watching. It's not. This is not an intellectual effort necessarily. You are persuading through emotion.
Right. We're actually combining the two, and in that aspect, this is a documentary unlike anything that has ever been released.
You told me that at the premiere of this thing, people were displaying a lot of emotion. Talk about that a minute.
Absolutely. I believe the message. It not only affected Christians, but the non-believing world so much, audience, that people were crying at the theater. I mean, it was a profound effect that it had on the audience, and immediately we're getting feedback that this truly is one of the most powerful ministry tools that people have ever seen.
And having said that, could we take a little break here and kind of look at a brief segment, a preview, if you will, of The Coming Convergence?
They say we were made in God's image. I believe it. Our achievements surpass imagination. Our creations marveled. But our hearts are not pure. So, In the pursuit of greatness, we built our empires upon death and suffering. But the world we shaped could never last. In the end, we brought wrath upon ourselves to cleanse the corruption. And I was there. And the skies opened and fire rained down from the heavens. I witnessed a new leader rise from the ashes, promising peace. But only death came. Now, as the world wages war, I hide as the innocent are slaughtered. But there were those that knew these days were coming, speaking of prophecies and signs.
We will be moving toward a one-world government.
Maybe that's why I'm still here, to warn you how the world really ends.
Well, indeed, emotional. You know, as I watched this presentation, and I always watch with a critical eye because I'm a student of Bible prophecy, student of the Bible. I like to present the gospel. I like to present prophecy. Most of all, I like to present prophecy to people who've never studied it. And this is all brand new to them. But they've got to be brought in some way or another. Their curiosity has to be aroused. And I think that your production really does that.
Well, thank you, Gary. We want to address prophecy in a way that is believable to everybody.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest misconceptions that people have, which is one of the things we began discussing, was the difference between prediction and genuine biblical prophecy. So to most people, and especially those that misunderstand prophecy, they think prophecy is just a single event that's predicted, let's see if it comes to pass or not, right? And that's why we have the Y2K incidents and so on. In reality, that's not biblical prophecy at all. Biblical prophecy consists of about a quarter of the entire Bible. And some theologians say it's about 2,500 prophecies in total. And these prophecies are actually structured like a sequence of dominoes, where in order for the next one to occur, the event before it has to come to pass. If you remove just one domino from that sequence, the whole sequence comes to a stop. It falls apart. And this is what's not understood about prophecy. So when we see these prophetic events unfold, not only do we have to recognize that this was prophesied and came to pass, but all the events that had to occur before that were prophesied that had to occur for that event to come to pass. And when you actually begin studying these events in biblical history, you begin to realize that statistically, with compounding statistics, that when an event comes to pass, the odds are so astronomical, it should absolutely not have happened. It's as far as secular thinking goes, it should never occur. And this is one of the things that tells us that these prophetic events and the Bible comes from a divine source and can absolutely be proven. And that's the point of prophecy. You have to ask, why did God give us prophecy? Why does it exist at all? It's because prophecy, genuine prophecy, can only come from God, who is outside of time, who is outside of our world. So God gave us prophecy to prove that he is God. And so he didn't have to. It's for our edification. It's to show us that when we see these things, we know that he is God.
So the title, The Coming Convergence, is talking about the convergence of all of the signs and wonders that we see in the Bible. And specifically, and you've heard about the signs that Jesus talked about, very general signs: earthquake, famine, pestilence, various geological naturalistic kind of catastrophes happening more and more and more frequently. And I think you make a pretty good case that that's happening right now.
So absolutely. By looking, again, going back to how the remaining prophecies are going to unfold in the end of days. It's not just one sign or two signs or three. Jesus spoke of many signs. So Jesus himself warns us of a convergence. And it's something that not a lot of churches or individuals are talking about. We're so focused on the tree, we're missing the forest. And if you don't acknowledge the forest, the big picture of prophecy, then we cannot communicate that to a non-believer, to everybody else. They're just sharing the tree with them, which they may take or may not. It doesn't prove that prophecy as a whole is absolutely real to someone who, say, is a skeptic. So Jesus, he spoke of coming wars, economic turmoil, various disasters, all these types of things. And what we hear commonly, and I'm sure you have as well, is that so many people say, well, we've always had wars and disasters, so how is that any different? I guess you have to take these prophetic events in the end of days on blind faith. Whereas, in fact, Jesus used verbiage that didn't just indicate wars and disasters. It was global wars and global disasters will be signs. And not only that, but not that these things would occur, but that they would occur all at the same time. That's a scenario that has never happened in the history of man. And that is why we have to look to this convergence to see that if it's unfolding. Because if this is indeed the last generation, if we are at the 11th hour, then evidence for everything Christ spoke of, this convergence, must be unfolding now. So the more that we flew around the world, we filmed in Israel and Turkey. We've spoken with theologians like Jack Hibbs and Ray Bentley. And what we have found with the evidence, and statistical, geological, et cetera, is that these convergences, the foundation for them is there. They are happening and they're coming. They're converging to a point very, very quickly, especially over the last 100 years, that would indicate that this statistically, again, we live by statistics every day. And so statistically, this must be the last generation.
And that's emphasized by the fact that Israel is back in the land, was out of the land until 1947-48. And since Israel returned and became a part of the community of nations, officially these are the last days, because the Bible is totally focused on what happens to Israel.
Absolutely. In fact, that's another statistical point where you have to look at the prophetic timeline as a whole. When Christ prophesied the rebirth of Israel, right, the rebudding of the fig tree, that was before Israel had collapsed in the first place. Again, reinforcing that example of the prophetic domino sequence, which makes the rebirth of Israel in 1948 not just the most astonishing thing in history, but even more so the most astonishing thing in history, which statistically could not have happened unless it was truly from divine source.
A divine source, the authoritative source, in fact, the only authoritative source, the Lord God himself, who said in Isaiah, I create the end from the beginning. In other words, when it comes to Bible prophecy, the Lord laid it out in advance. And in a way, he was laying down a challenge to all of us to read the Bible and to understand for ourselves what he intends to do. And it's really clear once you begin to study it. But today, sadly, we've kind of fallen away from that study. And I think the Coming Convergence is aimed straight at that group of people who need answers and don't know where to look.
Absolutely. This film was in production for over 2 years to not only speak to the believing world. In the believing world, we're not infallible. You know, we need encouragement, and we need proof. Now, a lot of people would argue and say, well, I don't need proof. I have blind faith. And for those individuals, may the Lord bless them. But most people want proof and edification. And we know that because of biblical examples themselves. The reason why God gave us prophecy was to prove to us that these things would happen and that he was there. And there are many examples in the Bible where we fall short and the Lord is there to prove to us with statistics, evidence, etc. Doubting Thomas with Christ. Anything you need to do it so that you know that I am he. And so God is always giving us proof and evidence that what he says is the truth. He's giving us every opportunity that we need to believe.
Brent, when we go to prophecy conferences, people come to us all the time and over, and I can't emphasize this too much. They say to us, in my church, Bible prophecy just isn't taught. My pastor doesn't teach it. And I suppose you run into this yourself.
Yep, absolutely, which is part of the reason why we see this great divide between people of many different backgrounds, between the difference between prediction and prophecy. I mean, we're not just talking about the non-believing world. The Coming Convergence affects Christians sometimes just as deeply as those on the fence or those that are unsure about biblical prophecy, because churches are not teaching eschatology. It is a topic that is being avoided. And what's interesting, some people may think that apologetics, just presenting evidence, fighting fire with fire, that's what this is about, it is a new thing. And it is not. It's something that we have lost. In fact, if we look at the Apostle Paul, in the first century, it states that he reasoned in the synagogues for weeks with Jews and the Greeks.
Indeed, he did. And I'm sure that his reasoning was also based upon a lot of prophecy, what we call prophecy today, except that it was originated a couple thousand years ago.
Absolutely. And what it means by reasoning, he didn't just stand up there and preach a message. When he reasoned, he actually presented biblical history, prophetic evidence, and statistics that proved that the Messiah had come, died, rose, and had fulfilled prophecy. So he's using all the things that the church today should be using to not only lift up their congregations, but to also educate the non-believing world that prophecy is real. And again, prophecy has such importance because it's one of the greatest things that can be used to prove the validity of the Bible. If you have 2,500 prophecies and 2/3 of them come to pass, which is what most theologians say about biblical prophecy, then why wouldn't the remaining 1/3 also come to pass? I mean, you're looking at a pattern that statistically you can no longer deny, but most people don't know this, they're not teaching it, and they're not sharing it with others.
These presentations that you do, I think, have a common effect, and that is they inspire thought, but they also inspire emotion. And let's just call it what it is, fear. You need to have a healthy fear, and Solomon said, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I think most of our society today doesn't really fear God. They may fear a lot of other things, but when you begin to fear the Lord as the Creator and the one who's going to bring it all to an end in a particular way, which he's very, very open in talking about in Scripture, once you begin to understand that, you are seized by a kind of a fear. Lord, what must I do at this point, now that I realize that these things are going to happen? And I think that's the effect that you're getting with your presentation.
Right. And honestly, the intention was not to create fear, even though you're right, that is the result of so many people that watch this. All we're doing is presenting the truth. And when people hear the truth, it can be a scary thing. Truth can be offensive. It can also be scary. And so I do believe that's why a lot of people do react with fear. They want to dive in. They want the truth. And it's changing lives. We know just from the premiere that we held in California, we were receiving emails and phone calls of attendees where they were going home. Their husbands were crying and talking about it for hours after the movie, days after the film. They were still talking about it, Googling some of these things and discovering that the evidences that we have exposed that prove the convergence is happening are indeed happening. And it is absolutely changing lives. It's something that I think everybody should share with everybody they know.
It's called The Coming Convergence. This is the DVD. This is the Blu-ray. We have either one. And by the way, if you order either of these, I have a couple of bonus DVDs. I want you to go to prophecywatchers.com and just click on the online bookstore and scroll down, and you're going to find Brent Miller's name in there, and you're going to find these offerings. The Coming Convergence, either in Blu-ray or DVD. When you order either one of these, you're going to get the Coming Pole Shift and Fire from Heaven. And by the way, these have been viewed by a lot of people. If you haven't seen them, here's your opportunity to get them absolutely free. Brent, you're going to be present at the Blessed Hope Prophecy Forum, October 13th through 15th. And what do you have planned?
What I have planned is that we're going to present some of the evidences that are in the film and actually dive in a little more depth about some of those statistical occurrences and some updates regarding how some of the foundations for these converging events are changing and even heading more towards a tribulation period in these end of times.
Believe me, I would recommend these to you because I've watched them. It's when you watch Brent's presentation, and you're going to be emotionally moved. I was, and you can't help but be. Now, I have an understanding of my salvation, my destiny. I'm safe in the Lord. I don't have anything to fear at all. But I can really commiserate with people who don't have that blessed hope. Mm-hmm. And it's these people that you're wanting to reach. And I think you do.
Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, that truly is the goal of the film. In fact, our conclusion of the film is truly not just about these prophetic events are unfolding and the emotional tale of our actress, which we call the girl living in the tribulation period, and how that connects to pretty much everybody who watched the film. But it's also to make the point, to reiterate the fact that prophecy exists for God to prove to us that he is God. And if the prophecies are true, that means everything that the Bible contains is true, including the message of eternal life for those who follow Jesus Christ. And that is the ultimate point of what we're trying to accomplish.
His name, Brent Miller Jr., and we really appreciate what he has done. Once again, you can get either the DVD of The Coming Convergence, Blu-ray, The Coming Convergence. You're going to be amazed at the production qualities of this thing. It's a wonderful motion picture. Brent, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gary. It was a pleasure.
I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.